Even though we're not having any amazing Star Wars productions lately, it doesn't mean that we cannot watch all over again with the old movies. I'm a huge fan, and Star Wars made me love sci-fi. Every year I watch all of the 6 original movies, and I'm here right now to bring you guys and explain, of course, my favorite Star Wars movies from the 3 trilogies. So there won't be any movies like Rogue One, Solo, so I'm gonna make another video just for them, but let's not waste much time here. Please don't forget to subscribe. Please don't forget to leave a like, share this video to a lot of people to see if they agree with me. And please, let's go with this video. So to the 9th position, I believe it won't be a surprise to tell you that the worst film among the 9 main movies was Star Wars 9: The Rise of Skywalker. So, of course, I won't waste your time discussing its few positive aspects, and it's poorly concluded a trilogy that was already quite controversial and suffered from terrible management, mainly by our dear Kathleen Kennedy. Blaming her is not that crazy, as you may recall that the director of this fantastic movie was J.J. Abrams, who also produced one of the greatest series ever made, Lost. While it was revolutionary, it likely faced a similar problem as this movie, which is his favorite concept called the mystery box. If you never heard of it, basically it relies on generating curiosity in the audience by presenting a mystery that is never fully revealed at the end, hoping that this will actually generate some discussions among viewers. And as we saw, this approach turned out to be a disaster because in the end, many aspects of the film were left unexplained, and it ended in the most disappointing way possible, leaving us with a feeling of resentment. We couldn't tell whether it was more like Star Wars 7 or 8, as it mixed the worst element of both of them. I even had high expectation when I saw it at the premiere, and at first I didn't dislike it that much. However, upon further reflection, numerous issues became apparent, and I had to agree that introducing the Emperor in such a senseless manner made me hate the movie even more. And regarding the special effects, there's no need to discuss them since they have never been a weak point in Star Wars, so making Rey the granddaughter of Palpatine was quite strange, to say the least, as it seems like a forced connection between her and the Emperor, but in the end it was just a very poor solution at all. The film lacks charisma and identity and is just an extremely poor made copy of Star Wars 6. That doesn't mean you won't enjoy watching it, after all it's Star Wars. Nonetheless, Disney cannot complain since the movie grossed over $1 billion freaking dollars, which honestly shocked me a lot, proving how effective their marketing was and how big the brand of Star Wars is. So, Jesus Christ, it didn't deserve that, so I believe without a doubt that Star Wars 9 was the worst film of all. So in the 8th position, it really hurts me to place a movie from a trilogy I have a huge affection for in the 8th position, but Star Wars 2 couldn't be ignored. It's a truly questionable film. Because I'm from the 2000s, I grew up watching Star Wars 1, 2, and 3, and so I really cherish them because I see them through the eyes of my childhood, which gives me a bias towards these movies. However, as I always do, I rewatch this trilogy, as I said, every year, and I notice several complicated details, such as the explanation of the creation of the Clone Army, which you might not understand if you don't pay attention. Also, the way Obi-Wan was, for example, unable to defeat a mere bounty hunter. That, come on, he could have just used the Force and turned this guy into a t-shirt, but despite the really bad acting by Hayden in certain parts, there's one scene in this movie that for me stands out in the entire Star Wars saga, where he talks to Padme about how he killed the Sand People, showing his descent to the dark side. That this part is actually outstanding. And of course the arena scene where they are battling is a bit lost in the movie, in my opinion. Back when I was a kid it seemed cool, but now it's a bit embarrassing to watch. And however, the lightsaber duo at the end where we face Count Dooku and Yoda that comes in and saves the day, flipping around like a hyperactive gremlin, was really cool because it was always a curiosity of mine to see how powerful Yoda could be. And of course, the most ridiculous part of this film is where Count Dooku is tasked with killing the senator. So what he does, he hires a bounty hunter to hire another shape-shifting bounty hunter who sends a robot with a pathetic insect to do the dirty work. So, in short, if he had just given clear instructions to Jango Fett, the job would have been done, and the movie would last 10 minutes and no problem would be had. So, yes, I have a huge passion for this movie, but it will have to be in the penultimate position. It's really difficult to defend the prequels so I'll have to place Star Wars 1 in the 7th position. However, I would like to add that I don't believe this film is as terrible as people make it out to be. Unfortunately, it suffered from being one of, if not the biggest hype of the decade in cinema. I explained a bit in my video, which you can find on the card here. It's my most viewed video here on the channel where I discuss this further. During that time, people who experienced the release in theaters had enormous expectations for this film. George Lucas created a massive buzz, especially due to the technological revolution it brought and the introduction of a character with a double lightsaber, promising one of the greatest lightsaber battles in Star Wars history. And I will not play them because indeed one of the best lightsaber duels in Star Wars is very well choreographed and closes the film nicely. However, the film suffers from a significant slowdown, primarily due to the political intrigues it attempts to address throughout. George Lucas could have made it more interesting, but he seemed confused in his writing. I'm not here to criticize his creative abilities, but he did direct this film poorly in some aspects, making it slower than normal. So I want to attack the actor who played the main character, considering he was just a child at the time. The expectations for him to deliver the performance of the greatest villain in pop culture was incredibly high. Still, I truly believe he did the best job anyone could have done, as I mentioned in my video on the card above. When I first saw this film, I enjoyed it a lot, and it opened the door for me to explore more of the Star Wars universe. It holds a special place in my heart, just like Episode 2, but we cannot deny it is evident in flaws and shortcomings. I'll give you a heads up first. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so now to support this channel. We have some cool upcoming videos like this one, and now let's get into the controversies of my choices for the best Star Wars movies in my opinion. If you disagree, please don't insult me, leave your comments below, and I'm open to changing my opinion, there's no problem with that. So in 6th place, I have Star Wars 7: The Force Awakens. The hype for this film was massive, even greater than the hype for the original Star Wars in my opinion. I remember vividly when I saw the trailer for the first time. I was ecstatic that they were making another Star Wars movie. I've been a Star Wars fan since 2010. And when I saw the announcement and trailer for this film, I was blown away. I almost cried with excitement and thought, I need to see this film right now. When I watched it, I was incredibly enthusiastic to see where the new trilogy could lead. While this film is generally very, very good, it has a massive flaw, which is the lack of originality. The setting, effects, and the character are fantastic. But the story is an unabashed copy of Star Wars: A New Hope. This is not necessarily a bad thing because it is an extremely well-made film, but you need to bring something new to truly surprise the audience, and unfortunately the film offered very little in that regard. The two aspects that shamelessly copy A New Hope are Kylo Ren killing Han Solo, trying to replicate the same dramatic impact as when Darth Vader killed Obi-Wan. In this case, we felt it more due to our emotional attachment to Han Solo, one of, if not the most beloved character by the fans. The second aspect is the construction of the Death Star version 3. For heaven's sake, fire all those screenwriters, because seriously, there was no other option you could come up with to make it a bit more original. Despite my love for the film, and even if it is on TV, I will watch it at all. It lacks a lot of originality. To prove my point again, this film was one of the few in history to gross $2 billion at the box office, which is mind-boggling, but I won't say it doesn't deserve it because, as I mentioned, the film, it is actually really good. Look, now, all the movies from here are on a very good with few errors, but they will be evaluated anyway. So to start the controversies, I am going to put Star Wars 6 in 5th place. I think I'm going to have to change my address now because people will come to my house to kill me. But I'm going to explain my opinion about this movie a little bit. So I love the Ewoks. Well, I don't love, but I quite like them because they are funny and it's not weird that they defeated the Stormtroopers since they were always quite ridiculous. So this movie also introduces Luke becoming a Jedi Master and showing all the potential of his abilities. The fight against Jabba, and the highlight of the film, of course, Princess Leia as a prisoner. Holy Mother of God, it is really something that makes me watch this movie thousands and thousands of times. And I told you, all the movies that are here from now are very good, so I'm going to attack very few points in my opinion. The most serious point one is exactly the threat that Palpatine was presenting, which was nothing more than a bigger version of the Death Star. The way they come up to destroy it was really innovative and clever and well executed, But this creative issue bothered me a lot. But not only that, this is kind of a joke, but it's still true. Like, in the end, which is a very good ending, by the way, where Darth Vader saves Luke from Palpatine, sacrificing himself in the process, he has a complete redemption where the dark side completely leaves him and he becomes Anakin Skywalker once again. And for those who didn't understand, that's why the movie is called The Return of the Jedi and why it's Anakin's return. It's nothing to do with Luke. Even though he redeemed himself, it is almost unfair for him to be directed to be the so-called Jedi paradise where he becomes a good guy just because he had that rescue. Come on, like, if you've never read the comics or heard the stories on the internet about the things Darth Vader has done, people, I'm sorry, like, he would have to make a bit more of an effort to redeem himself, like, because the amount of stuff this guy has done, he would need about like 78 life sentences at least to redeem from himself. So, but we're going to overlook all of that because the movie is really good and very iconic, and that ending with the little tune of the Ewoks is just really satisfying. And in the fourth position, I will receive probably the most hatred I have ever received in my life, and I'm prepared for that. So in fourth place will be Star Wars The Last Jedi. Before people start attacking me, blah blah blah, please listen to me, please. As I had complained, Star Wars 7 suffered from what? An extremely serious problem, which was the extreme lack of originality that was even exposed by Disney CEO Bob Iger, who in his book revealed the need for an immediate Star Wars success and ended up playing it very safe with its release. And then with Rian Johnson coming in, they changed the perspective that the other director, J.J. Abrams, had, a style very different from him, which is, in my opinion, brought a breath of fresh air, and I will explain why. I think the biggest criticism that fans had with this film was the fact that Luke Skywalker became a person who renounced his role as a Jedi Master and became disenchanted with the beliefs he held. However, every time I discuss with someone who didn't like it, and that's okay, like, it's okay you don't like it. And there's very little productive and rational conversation with it. Because in the movie, this was very well constructed, where he tried to train his nephew, he saw the darkness in his heart and was consumed by fear due to what happened with his father, and he attempted something repugnant, which, was too late, and he lost all of his students because of that, renouncing and becoming a Jedi and distancing himself from the Force. Of course, this was in a very late part of his life. He still had like 10 or 15 years of exploration that we haven't seen yet, but at that final moment of his life, there was indeed an explanation that was very well given, in my opinion, for why he didn't continue with the Jedi Academy. It was actually a very mature evolution of the script, and it surprised me quite a little bit because I really didn't expect this outcome. For me, the solution may not be the best, but if done correctly, it becomes good. Really, one of the extremely bad parts that this film had, and that I could definitely be improved, for example, was the arc of Rose. And Finn, it wasn't necessarily useless, but she was a poorly developed character in general, with the depth of like a kiddie pool. And additionally, there was a huge missed opportunity where a guy in a white suit with a red flower on his suit lapel appears. It could easily have been Lando, like easily. And they botched that part that would have been fantastic in the movie. Of course, they also wasted once again a character with a helmet like Captain Phasma, Boba Fett, Jango Fett, all that. Later, even a leaked video showed how her defeat could have been, which would have been a million times better than what it was and would have made this movie even more enjoyable. I also really like the fighting between Kylo and Rey against those special guards. The choreography is quite interesting, is more realistic, and I liked it. Additionally, the part where he kills Snoke doesn't necessarily weaken him, but shows how brilliant and powerful Kylo was and demonstrated an incredible ability with the lightsaber and especially with the Force manipulation. People might not like that special effect of Leia, of course, floating in space, but they cannot complain about the fact that her use of the Force was really cool and referenced it by a lot of the Star Wars content of Legends that was produced in books way before these movies existed. And for the people who really didn't like this movie, I completely understand that, but I ask you please to stop and think for a moment and reason that it's not really a bad movie. You just wanted the movie to be exactly the way you wanted it, and from the moment it wasn't, you give it a 0, because either you like this movie or you completely hate. There's not a single soul that said, this movie is okay. There's not a single soul. Unfortunately, this is a serious problem in the Star Wars community in general, whether it's either all or nothing, making some discussions very tiresome and annoying. And if you really want to debate here in the comments, please feel free to do so. I would love to talk to everyone and have a conversation, but please, let's maintain respect. In the third position, A New Hope truly was a film that completely changed a generation, revolutionizing not only the science fiction genre, but also the entire film industry. It brought highly innovative special effects for its time, leaving people shocked and thrilled. It brought Harrison Ford into the spotlight as Han Solo, later reuniting with George Lucas for Indiana Jones. Besides, it introduced, of course, the greatest villain in fiction, Darth Vader, who, with just a relatively small appearance, instilled fear in everyone watching. Not just the character itself, it introduced one of the biggest myths in pop culture, of course, the Force, which still remains a largely unexplored mystery in the Star Wars lore after almost 50 years, leaving fans curious to know more. There wasn't much room to exclude this masterpiece from the top 3 of this list, but it truly falls behind the other two due to lacking the complexity and surprises presented by the subsequent films. However, make no mistake, it is a fantastic movie, even nearly 50 years after its release, and it presents us with an epic adventure that has garnered a multitude of fans around the world to this day. To the second position, I think it's gonna be a divisive opinion here. It's gonna be a true battle of titans between my two favorite Star Wars movies. It was really hard to choose who would take this position, but it was truly based on personal preference, and it wouldn't be absurd if they switched places. So, in second place, we have Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. I recently watched it, and I truly cannot imagine the reaction of people back then watching it. It was an evolution in every single aspect from The New Hope, bringing an extremely rich and enjoyable story. Notable highlights definitely include the Battle of Hoth, which is really well directed and set in the snowy world, along with the menacing structure of the vehicles used by the Empire, Luke's journey to Dagobah, and perhaps one of the best moments in Star Wars history, where we see him being taught humility by one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, demonstrating tremendous knowledge and power to the young Padawan. The confrontation of Luke inside the cave, where he essentially faces a dark side mirror of himself, showing him his future if he follows that path of darkness. Even Yoda's iconic lines have become part of history, like "Judge me by my size, do you?" and the most iconic one for me, which is "Do or do not, there is no try." The Empire's pursuit of Han Solo, it is also incredibly done, with the space exploration within this film being fantastic, and the deepening of the relationship between Leia and Han Solo being well executed, reaching its peak when they arrive at Cloud City, where Han is captured and frozen in carbonite. That's when they officially become a couple and the catalyst for the invasion of Jabba's palace in Star Wars 6. And of course, the duel between Luke and Darth Vader, which is still visually captivating to this day, especially due to the atmosphere that the director created of Darth Vader relentlessly pursuing his visibly inferior victim. Yet Luke's survival instincts led him to engage in a prolonged battle. Besides, they are fighting in a visually stunning location, and naturally in the final moment we have the biggest plot twist in cinema history, where Darth Vader reveals himself as Luke's father. And even though I already knew the story, as did around 90% of the global population, the revelation is still dramatically well executed, and honestly, if I could make one wish in my whole life, would be to experience watching Star Wars for the first time, just so I could feel that emotion. But for me, it's still second place to my favorite Star Wars movie of all time, which is Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. The way this film became a cultural phenomenon over time is something that truly deserves to be studied. We saw the previous two films being criticized and smashed by fans, and the third one became the conclusion to the story that led to the classic films, the downfall of Anakin Skywalker. Honestly, I don't see any clear flaws in this movie, honestly. We witnessed special effects that are still impressive today, and one of the best space battles ever made in the beginning of the movie, the rescue of Palpatine, followed of course by the execution of Count Dooku, which pushed Anakin further towards the dark side. The movie steps away from the political intrigues and dives headfirst into the armed conflicts of the Clone Wars and the hunt for General Grievous, which treated us to the most iconic line in Star Wars with "Hello there." By the way, a special moment to thank Ewan for bringing this character to life in a fantastic way. He became one of my favorite characters in the saga, and the most crucial part of the film, of course, Palpatine finally luring Anakin to the dark side, exploiting his weaknesses and revealing himself as Darth Sidious, almost being killed by the unfairly treated Mace Windu, who, after losing the ability to wipe his own ass, is promptly thrown out. The activation of Order 66 carries immense weight in the film, showing the near genocide of all Jedi in the galaxy and the amiable massacre of the younglings, where Anakin killed more children than when I take showers, if you know what I mean. That's what I was talking about his redemption arc in Star Wars 6. After being crowned Darth Vader, we witnessed the most epic duel imaginable between two Jedi. Master and apprentice fight with everything they have in this physical and emotional battle set in an hostile lava environment, leading to Anakin being burned and officially embracing the dark side as his ally. On that day, Anakin officially dies, and of course the duel between Yoda and Palpatine, showcasing the most powerful Force users ever seen of all time. And I know me, myself, and many other people were puzzled by why Yoda actually lost to Palpatine. As Yoda and Palpatine were both extremely sensitive to the Force, they responded to its currents, and at that moment the galaxy had been steeped in darkness, allowing Palpatine to harness such enormous power enough to overpower the weakened Yoda. Man, I don't know, man, this film hardly takes a breath, and everything within it lays the foundation for this fantastic saga that shook the world, leaving Darth Vader by the Emperor's side, witnessing the creation of the massive Death Star, the separation of the twins Luke and Leia, the exile of Obi-Wan and Yoda. This makes this film my favorite within the incredible saga. So yeah, I think that's it for this long ass video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It took so much time to edit this, holy crap. Please, it will help me a lot if you just leave a like and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds for you to do that. It is super fast and it helps us a lot. It's just a tremendous help. Thank you guys so much for watching. I loved making this video for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will definitely see you guys on the next video, on the next review. So goodbye and peace.